Skeens.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of How Did We Get Here? I'm your host, Jay Carter, and the man that is always heard and never, ever, ever will be seen, Skeens.
What up?
Better than your average is the channel and the movement. How Did We Get Here is the show. We got two cousins that are like brothers talking anything and everything in the process. How did we get here? Thank you for tuning in for another episode. And we want to get right to it without any further ado. We have a very special guest on the phone, a big brother from another mother, my man, David Barnes. Welcome to the show, sir.
The man, the myth, the legend.
Did you have to say my first name like that?
It's my man, a.k.a. D-Nice, a.k.a. Vinny, a.k.a. DB, a.k.a. the angriest man you ever met.
A.K.A. Coach Barnes.
A.k.a. Coach.
Hey, I appreciate you, fellas. Appreciate you. My pleasure being on, man. It's my pleasure, man. My pleasure.
Yeah, man. So when we talk about when Skeens and I talk about brothers that we have in our village, so to speak, and brothers that we can go to when we talk about holding each other accountable, and brothers that you can go to and bounce stuff off of, and brothers that you can go to say, hey, man, what's your thoughts on this? Did I miss the mark? This is somebody that I could go to. We had the pleasure of working together for a number of years now. And even before we worked together, I mean, we were cool. But when we started working together, our relationship, I think you would agree, Dave, went to another level to where me and this dude usually talk to each other multiple times a day. And sometimes it's just to pick up the phone, or I look and see that he call it, because our phones in the offices, when it's an internal number coming, it rings a certain way where you can tell it's an internal. And I look over there, see his name, and I pick up the phone. And he'd be like, yo, you a bum, and he'll just bang and hang up on me. So, so yeah, they know if I'm in the office on the phone laughing a certain way, they be like, I know he's on the phone with Dave. I'll be like, yeah. So, you know, man, I appreciate you for coming on, man. But I wanted to just talk a little this, a little that with you, man. As y'all know, me and Skeens be on the fly. And we got these wonderful friends where we just recorded a episode that we're going to release. And right after, literally, Dave was like, yo, I ain't seen y'all upload a pod in the minute. I'm like, yo, we just did one. So I'm like, yo, you need to come on. He's like, all right, come on. All right, I'll jump on. So, but anyway, Dave, I always wanted you to come on, man, because we ain't going to get all the way deep into it. But you have a very interesting story. And I just want to do a little bit. We're going to get into some kind of current event stuff and some sports talk. But really, man, you have such a dope story, man. And, you know, there's so much about you that as my older brother, I look up to. And, you know, to give you your flowers, man, it's just your dedication to your family, your work ethic that I've had and the pleasure of working with you. Dave has always been one of the dudes that I could come with some of the craziest missions that we got to get done. He'll look at me crazy, but it's like I give it the equivalent of you at the house chilling and somebody come with a crazy mission, and Dave would look at me crazy, but he would be putting the shoes on so we can go ahead and make it happen. So one of my favorite stories I love to tell, there was a lady that lived in our neighborhood that we work in, and she had a fire at her house. So she was staying at a one of our hospitality suites, and she was moving off post. So, so
here we go.
So this is my man though. So she was staying in one of the hospitality suites, and she needed help getting some of the stuff. Ironically, where the hospitality suite was in one of the other neighborhoods, it was almost kind of right down the street from the apartment where she bought a house at.
Yeah.
So she's like, yo, I left some stuff in that suite, but I don't have no way to get it because we got to get the suite ready for the next family's got to go into. But she like, I don't have no way to get that stuff out of there. And my mom is, has a disability. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm like, Dave, I need you to run over here with me. We're going to get in the truck, the work truck, go over. There's like a pitcher, I think a chair, some other miscellaneous stuff that we got to get out of that house. So Dave's looking, again, he's looking at me, but he's, again, quote unquote, putting his shoes on. Let's go and make it happen. So while we're going over there to get the stuff, it starts raining. So we're transporting this stuff in the rain, just a little mist. By the time we get to take it over to the house, it's a downpour.
Full blown.
I mean, torrential downpour in Central Texas. So her mom, I've heard of her mom when I see her, it's a lady I used to help get out of her car at church all the time.
Okay.
So I'm like, oh, I know you from da-da-da-da-da. So she's like, baby, why y'all here? Can y'all move this stuff that we got to get moved in the house that's in there? So me and Dave like, cool, we'll carry it in the back. So Dave comes in, and it's an older lady. Once they see Dave, bruh, and that doggone beautiful Dave hair, they're like, oh. And so it turns a whole other way when they see Dave. These older ladies, man. So Dave is giving me that look.
I hate this story.
I had the Rico Suave music playing.
Davido. Barnes. I don't know, but David Barnes. But anyway, so I had crazy jokes after the fact. And I was doing old woman voices in the office. Oh, that David, he was so handsome, But so my man helped me, man. We were soaking wet after the fact, man. But again, my man would go into the flames, man, with me to make it crack, man. So, Dave, can you tell us a little bit about, where you come from and what your kind of dynamic was coming up as a young man?
Oh, man, even though I knew the question was coming, I don't even know where to start. Let's start here. So this is the way I like to tell it, because then it makes sense.
Yes, sir.
So, my family actually originated in a town called Buffalo Junction in Virginia, which is like two cities or two towns: Buffalo Junction, Chase City, Virginia, Clarksville, Virginia. So anyway. My mom was married when she was in high school, because she got pregnant with my oldest brother when she was in high school.
Okay.
And he was born in '66, and I think that's the same year she graduated. So my mom and her husband at the time going through some stuff. He was abusive, and the whole thing. Sidebar real quick. This dude, he's like 6'4", 6'5".
Oh, wow.
225, 235. Yeah, big dude. And he played baseball, and he got picked up by the New York Mets, I think it was, to play baseball.
I never knew that part of the story. Okay.
And he went to spring camp. And this is a sidebar. He went to spring camp, made the team or whatever. Then got homesick and left New York and came back to Virginia to be down south. Yeah. So fast forward, him and my mom having problems. My family was like, yo, you need to. By that time, a lot of my family had migrated to New Jersey. So they sent my mom up to New Jersey. So while she was up there, she met a guy, an Italian guy, as she was going to work. Apparently the story is when she was walking to work every day or coming back from work, she would see this guy. He would speak to her, and then, speaking led to conversations. Conversations led to them dating and then having a relationship, Of course, he was married and he had a family across town. And, him and my mom had this thing, and then she got pregnant. Well, when she got pregnant, old black families back then was like, hey, you got to go back with your husband. You can't stay here. You got to go back.
Yeah.
So they sent her back down south. And you can imagine when I was born what happened, because, it's like, this baby don't look like
This baby don't look like
yeah. Who the baby pappy?
Right. Yeah.
So bunch of stuff it depends on who you talk to in the family. Stuff happened to me, crazy stuff. So one of my aunts came from New Jersey on the bus and got me when I was 2 years old and was like, hey, we got to take him. It's kind of like a slave story. Like, yo, we got to go north with him.
Right. We got to go north with this white black baby.
Yeah, right. So they took me up to New Jersey. So I was living with my aunt, who was also taking care of her mother, which is my great grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
And then my aunt had a son. So we lived in this. It was a 3-story house that was owned by my uncle, but actually it was owned by my aunt at the time anyway. And we stayed on the first floor, but we rented out the second floor, and then the third floor my uncles stayed on. So anyway, I'm living with my great grandmother and my aunt, and basically my great grandmother is raising me. She's taking care of me and my cousin.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom lived on the other side of town.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on for one sec. Yes, boo, I'm on the phone. What is that? Okay, so I already thought, boo, I'm on the phone. Let me finish, okay? Okay, let me see it. Come on.
And this is a father of 2 daughters and 2 older sons in real life.
Yeah. So when after I had went up to New Jersey, my mom came up there and she got a job as a waitress across town.
Mm-hmm.
And
she worked in like a diner, right?
Yeah. She worked in a place called East Orange Diner.
Yep.
And so she was living across town while I was living with my great grandmother, and she would come by occasionally and see me. And it was, she was young, so
mm-hmm.
she was like any young adult. She had boyfriends, you know what I'm saying? She would bring them through, and my grandmother would limit her interaction with me when she had these guys over, because my grandmother was very protective. She's like, nah, you ain't gonna do that baby like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really cool, boo. Let me finish talking, okay? So anyway, fast forward. So after I was born, my mom got pregnant 2 more times, and she had my sister and my youngest brother. Mm-hmm. Now all of them were still living in Virginia, and I was living in New Jersey.
Okay.
So
you and the older brother.
What's that?
You and the older brother?
No. I was the only one in Jersey.
Oh, you would have. Okay.
Yeah, because my oldest brother, my sister, and my youngest brother, they all stayed with their dad down in Virginia.
Okay, gotcha.
So, occasionally my mom would get all of us, and we'd all be under the same roof for like a year, and then, poof, we'd split up again, and then a couple of years later, come back again, be living under the same roof. So it was kind of like sporadic. And most of that was probably, my mom young, still trying to find herself. She got 4 kids, you know what I'm saying? Just all this stuff going on, And so one time when I was 10, I think it was, my aunt and uncle was in the army, and they were in Colorado, and he got assignment to Germany. So my great grandmother she was the matriarch of the family, So anytime anybody came to town, their first stop was our house, you know what I'm saying, to see her get a home cooked meal, whatever the case may be. But at this time, I was living with my mom across town, and my aunt calls and she's like talking to my mom, about them adopting me, and taking me to Germany with them. So my mom calls me in the bedroom and she's like, "Hey, Aunt Judy and Uncle Junior, they want to take you to Germany, and I'm like, nah, because at the time I'm like, I want to be with my family, like I'm hard, like, as a kid, I'm like, I want to be with my family. I want to be with my mom, my brothers and sisters, even though we live in a 2-bedroom apartment, the usual story. I was like, nah, I want to stay here.
Mm-hmm.
So they finished talking, and then my mom called me back in the room, and she was like, hey, if you go with them, you're going to get new clothes, new shoes, you get to travel, been to be a place, you've never been. Just trying to sell it to me, but not like in a bad, at the time, I'm like, all right, cool, call her back and tell her, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we call her back. A couple of weeks later, my mom was like, hey, you got to move across town. You got to move back across town because now they have legal guardianship of you. So you got to be under the roof with her.
Mm-hmm.
So I moved back to my great grandmother's house because my uncle he had already left. So we were waiting for him to add me to his orders,
Yep.
get my ID card, all this other type stuff. So while I'm waiting, you know what I mean? I'm living with my aunt, trying to get adjusted to her, and she's trying to get adjusted to me. And so I started going back to the school I was going to before. So, it's just crazy. So then we went to Germany, and man, that it was an experience, but you would think it would be. Now I don't even know how to put it. Like it was beneficial in 50% of the ways, and non-beneficial in the other ways. And it was beneficial in the positive way because I didn't know the language, but I learned it. Because when you go to school, they teach you how to speak German. You get the book, and I remember I had this piece of paper that had all the conversational German on there, and I was outside trying to make friends with the kids, and they looking at me crazy. And the dude just as plain as we speak English right now, he was like, "Hey, let me see that paper." And I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
So he grabs the paper and he's like, he balls it up and he's like, "Yo, you're not gonna need this." He's like, "We're gonna teach you German."
Yeah.
I said, "Okay."
Yeah.
So I became friends with them, learning their culture, hanging out with them, and for 3 years straight, we never went back to New Jersey ever. We stayed 3 straight years.
Right.
So it took some adjustment for me because the other 50% that I was referring to was because my aunt and uncle just all of a sudden now you have a preteen in your house.
Yeah.
It was an adjustment for them,
that's
and
real.
not only that, but I'm a preteen. I'm coming from a house where my mom was working 2 jobs, right? So she was hardly home. So we were pretty much, raising ourselves.
Yeah.
So running the street, being out after dark, that whole 9, running with the cats, drinking on the corner, smoking the weed, blah, 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 all of that was happening. And then now here I am, I'm in Germany, and I'm like, yo, people leave their bikes out?
All right.
Seriously,
Yeah.
So I remember the first time I was walking, because it was like, I think probably 8 or 9 miles to base from my house because we lived on economy. We lived, German people.
Yep.
So I'm walking across this bridge, and there's a bicycle on the bridge, and I look down, and the cat is underneath the bridge, and I'm looking at the bike, and I'm like, yo, no lock, nobody around.
Yeah.
So I just hopped on it, and I just rode, So my thing I started doing was I started stealing bikes, taking them in the garage, stripping them down, spray painting them, putting everything back on, and pretending like It
Wow.
wasn't that bike.
Yeah.
So I got caught one day. I got caught one day. I got bold and I rolled past the dude's house. And him and his friend was standing out there, and dude was like, in German, he was like, yo, telling his friend, he's like, isn't that your bike?
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah. So they ran up on me and like, yo, in German and stuff like, hey, this is my bike. I'm like, nah. So he took a key and he scraped the bike.
Scraped your paint job off.
Scraped my paint job off, right? So I said, nah, this is not yours. So I pushed him away from me and I kept riding. These dudes, they tracked me down like a mile. They ran after me. And at that point, I was just like, you know what? I'm not even going to fight it. He take the bike, man.
Yeah.
I get another one. You know what I'm saying? So, but that I used to do that. And then it was hard, too, because, like, my aunt and uncle didn't want to take me anywhere, So anything that I wanted to do on base with my friends, I would have to, they got me a bike because I was telling them, look, I don't have no way to get back and forth to see my friends, and y'all not going to take me. I need something.
Well, in our day, the bike was the mode of transportation, baby.
Hey, they got me a 10-speed bike, a racing bike with the 10 racing tires and stuff.
Yeah.
So I would ride that, man, rain, sleet, or snow. I'm trucking it. So, the funny thing though is that they, and this is weird when people hear it, they think it's weird, but they never talked to me. They never like sat me down and had like a daily conversation. How was your day? Blah, blah, blah. It was just, they come in the house, say hello, and then go to their room. She would fix dinner, come in the room, be like, hey, dinner's ready, and then go back in her room. 3 years straight.
Wow.
So when we got ready to go back to the States, our first, course, like I said, our first stop was Jersey. So we stopped there, and I go stay with my mom for the summer. And I told my aunt, I was like, yo, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back with y'all. So she was like, all right, cool. We bouncing.
Yeah.
So they left, and I was there. So I finished out my 10th grade year in Jersey. And then, but while I was there, though, my mom didn't have a bed for me, so I was sleeping on the couch. And so, hold on for a sec. Sorry. Get up and leave, please. Hey, I'm on the phone. I need for you to go play. You have a friend over here. I'm on the phone. Go play.
Yeah, Nart, she had to be with a pop man. That's daddy's girl.
So my oldest brother and my sister were living with my mom, and we had 2-bedroom apartments. So I was sleeping on the couch. And finally, my mom got a bunk bed. So me and my brother sharing this 13 by 13 room.
Yeah.
With a bunk bed, one dresser. He got 3 drawers. I got 2.
Yeah.
We got the little. Right, and we were just making it happen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like we didn't know any better. So I mean, we knew better, but we had what we had.
Yeah, Skeens know how that goes.
Absolutely.
Skeens know all about that.
So, and because I was younger, I had to be on the top bed. My brother, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I started working for one of my mom's boyfriends. He was the first dude was he was a cleaner. He like clean, go out to the airport and clean the airport, clean office buildings, all that type stuff. So he was like teaching me how to use a buffer, teaching me how to wax floors, blah, 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 all that type stuff. So, he paying me. And then something happened and I ended up not working for him. And then I started working for this other guy that was like a trash dude. So like we would go pick up trash and all this type stuff. So I was getting paid under the table. My mom started seeing me have money and she was like, yo, I need that. And I'm like, yo, that's mine. Like, I'm not asking you for money. So me and my mom started bumping heads. And now when I sit back and look at it, I'm like, I was I was breaking her off some, but it wasn't enough for her. You know, it's like, hey, I'm room and boarding you. You know what I'm saying? Like, you need to be breaking me off. So me and her started bumping heads, and I was like, yo, I don't want to be here no more. I want to bounce.
Mm-hmm.
So she was like, all right, call your aunt. So I called my aunt. I was like, yo, I want to, come back and live with y'all. My aunt, straight up. I will never forget this conversation. She was like, so you want to come back, huh? He was like, nope, click.
Banged on you.
So I waited 2 weeks, and then I called her again, and she was like, okay, if you want to come back, when you get here, you're not leaving until you graduate. You're going to finish up here. So I said, all right, cool, bet, So they put me on a bus. I took the bus to Washington State. Ended up living with them, finishing out my junior and senior year. And then my senior year, my aunt was like, hey, when you graduate, you're going to have to pay rent.
Uh-oh.
And I was like, yo, we stay on post. We stay on government housing. And she was like, I don't care.
Right.
She was like, yo, you want to be an adult? You better figure it out. Because if you stay here, you're gonna be paying. So I was like, man. So I started applying to colleges and stuff, and I was supposed to go to the Art Institute of Seattle, and I had applied and they accepted me, but I wasn't like reading like I should have been reading because they didn't have a campus. They had a school, but they didn't have a campus. So you had to find yourself an apartment, while you went to school there. So they were willing to give me a scholarship to go, but I would have to find my own room and board and all of that.
When you say reading, you didn't look at the details.
Yes.
Okay, at first I thought you were saying, I was like, wait a minute, you was going to college, but you couldn't read? What happened? Your reading comprehension was no point? Okay.
No,
I'm sorry.
The details. And I don't know how I missed that, but I was like, man. Yeah, so when I found out about that, man, I was working at Kentucky Fried Chicken like my junior year and then my whole senior year. And I was like, man, this they had me work my way up. Back then it was like a thing, man. You first start making was that crispy? You first start making crispy when you get to KFC, and then they move you up to original.
Oh wow,
the original cook.
Yeah, okay.
But it was like a payday weekend in a military town. They had me on weekend duty, and they had a new guy doing the dishes. And so I quit that job, and then I started working on base at the Officers Club as like a waiter / bus person.
What kept him a job, man?
Yeah.
Oh, let me sidebar real quick. One thing I left out was so weird when the other job I had when I was in my sophomore year when I was going to high school in Jersey was I was a bus boy. My mom had got me a bus boy job at her second job because she worked at East Orange Diner and then she worked at West Orange Diner. So she would like leave West Orange Diner in the day after her day shift and then go work at the other one at night.
Wow. Okay. I thought this story is about to take a turn that you was an exotic dancer for a little bit.
Nah, that came later in life. I was working that other job, and I was like, man, this is not it. This is not it. So I called the recruiter and was like, hey, I need you to get me out of here, man. So he was like, I'm coming to pick you up tomorrow. So he came to pick me up the next day. I went and took the ASVAB, and then told my aunt I was out. Like,
man, so that's how you ended up going to the military.
That's how I ended up going to the military.
You know what? Let me ask you this, Dave, because let me backtrack because I'm gonna let you cook, man. But let me go back just a taste or two. Now, coming up in that environment where the father figure is not in the picture, and even when you went to live with your aunt and your uncle, that little piece. I just wonder who you look to, or did you feel a void on the male figure side of the game, or what was that thought process for you?
So I had a homeboy. Matter of fact, when I was coming up in Jersey, I had my uncles
Okay.
when they were around. I had them.
Yeah. Okay.
And then, but as far as like when I was younger, really nobody, because the crazy thing is this right here.
Mm-hmm.
So on one side of our town is blacks, on the other side was Italians. So imagine being light skinned on the black side of town. You know what I mean? So the friends that I did have, some of their parents weren't too keen to me being light skinned. Mm-hmm. So as far as them being father figures, that really didn't come into play, except I had one, my best friend when I was growing up named Howard Parks. His dad, because me and him used to run pretty tight. His dad used to be like, catch us every now and then and be like, hey, don't do nothing dumb. Hey, what you doing out there? Blah, blah, blah. But I really didn't have anything until I got to my junior and senior year. My best friend, Anthony Carson, I don't know if you remember him, Jay, but he was at the wedding. Mm-hmm. His dad really, really, used to sit us down and talk to us, let me borrow his car, talk to us about money, girls,
Okay, that's dope. Okay.
What you're doing in life, all that type stuff. So, yeah. So, that's how I joined the Army, man.
Yeah, and then I was even thinking too, when you were talking about Skeens and I we talk about this kind of off and on from time to time, and you can tie it in. We'll keep going forward, but we could tie it in even to. Do you think that we missed the mark in our rearing of children, where as soon as you're 18, it's just boom, we throw you in the game? Do we? I'm of the mind frame. I'll put my hand out there. I'm of the mind frame that we can do that better, because there's so many other cultures, I think, where they kind of incubate the kids more, especially if you know that they're not prepared. Because, and again, it's like, okay, well, that happened to me, so I got to do you the same way. And we don't amend our way of actually preparing the children to be ready. And then we just throw them out there and say, hey, that's, sink or swim, because that's what I had to do. What do you think about that?
I think I read or listened to a podcast or somebody. I think I read an article on this not too long ago that the article was saying African Americans, black people, are the only race that, and of course that's a very generalized statement, is the only race that throws their kids out when they turn 18. Right. Everybody else, like you say, incubates their kids. Like, no, little Johnny's not ready. Hey, you're not ready for the real world. You know what I mean? Like, we're gonna. Hey, you going to college? You can stay here. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You figure it out. You'll figure it out. Mm-hmm. And so I did. I had that struggle with both my sons, trying to figure out what was the best approach, you know what I'm saying? And with the dynamic of the family that we had, with it being broken, it's like, was I, sometimes I ask myself, was I too hard or was I not hard enough? You know what I'm saying? Was I less informative, or should I be, you know what I'm saying? Like, did I give them all the information they need, or did I just give them enough just to freaking think on their own,
Yep.
And so I really, like, when I look back on it, of course, there's some things I'm like, man, I could have did that better.
Of course.
I could have did that a certain way. But then when I look at both of them right now, they're doing great. I mean, they finally found the path. Yeah. They're doing great. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like, they, I get those, I get those conversations where it's like, yeah, I remember when you was telling me about this and that right here, and I understand what you was telling me,
Yeah, indeed.
and those are the times where you don't be like, see, I told you, I knew it. It's like, oh, word. You want to, and you really want to, but then
Yeah, that's your ego though. That's your ego.
I'm like, cool, word up, good, that's good. I'm glad you know that, and then try to make the conversation go somewhere else so they don't feel like I'm trying to gloat or
Yeah, I think Dave is just in the black community. I just thought about this too, Skeen, is that oftentimes in the black family, because financially wasn't really in a good space, you was trying to get that next kid off the books.
Alleviate as soon as possible.
You know what I'm saying? Because that's one less mouth I got to worry about. Now we have to, again, in our more privileged surroundings now, it's Dave, and what you're talking about, one of my mentors always talks to me, and me and my pop were just talking about this, is just the balance that you're always working and struggling to find in life. In all things, we trying to find balance. And you have to balance it. Like you said, you're balancing how much information do I give them? How much do I got to pull back and say, okay, I done gave this boy or girl this information. You just ain't doing nothing with it. You know what I'm saying? So, and in the, I can, in my own personal situation, I was staying with I didn't move out of my parents' house until I was 23. And that's actually when Skeens graduated school, came here, and me and him had been talking about, hey, yo, when you come here, man, we can get us a spot together. And I was going to school at CTC. I was messing around in school. I was, it was kind of like, cool, Dave, just show you my foolish mind. It was cool for me to say, oh, I'm working and going to school. And, my dad was under the guise that I was doing my thing. For a little bit of time, initially I was doing my thing, but I fell off. Yeah. And I was just going to school, wasn't focused on, wasn't passing. I'm paying for this stuff, but I'm like, yeah, man, I'm working and going to school. And my dad be like, yeah, that joke, I try to pay for his classes. He don't let me pay for it. And they like, man, Jay doing it out there. Man, no. So funny story about me, y'all. There was a letter that came to the house that showed that they was about to put me like on academic probation or something. Because I'm just going to CTC, failing the classes, going to school, paying for it, and not doing the work. Not doing it. How dumb is that? So my dad had a conversation with me. Pop's like, the gist of the conversation is, Jay, you were just going through life existing. You just existing, son. What are you doing? What are you trying to do with yourself, right? So he's like, you're gonna have to find you a spot, because my dad's thing was, dude, if you going to school, I ain't tripping on no bills or nothing. If you going to school, you focus on school. I want you to graduate and you don't worry about none of that. But now that you messing around in school, you ain't upholding your end of the bargain. You gonna either find you a spot, but I'm not putting you out, but find you a spot, or if you stay here, you gonna start chipping in. And I was like, yo, I ain't trying to pay this dude to stay here and live his way. So me and Skeens found us an apartment. I remember we was gonna get one particular apartment that fell through. Then we found this other apartment, like, yo, we about to get it. And my pop's like, man, I don't like this spot. Y'all ain't gotta move. We was like, no, we moving.
Very humble beginning.
We still gonna move, and that's kind of how it started, man. But I just again saluting my pop that he just wasn't like, dude, you 18, you gotta go. Skeen, go ahead. Did you?
Right. Yeah. Like, one of the questions that we talk about the incubation, when we should start focusing on the incubation process a lot earlier? Right?
Sure. Yeah.
So I would think maybe junior high. So in part of the creation is, let's start, whether we're talking about guys, because just us as guys, start trying to find some figures, some mentors or whatever in different fields. And every summer, we can introduce kids to a different field. Every summer, whether you do it half the summer, what you say, hey, this summer you may do some weld. You may want to learn how to work on cars and also learn how to cut grass. So every year introduce them to something different.
Yeah.
That way, by the time they're 18, it's time to graduate, they have an idea in terms of certain fields that they may want to go into.
Yep.
But also, you become self-sufficient in life,
life in general. Yeah.
But as well as part of that education is, we have to become financially responsible, because as we talk about hurry up getting them off the books, right?
Right.
That hurry up getting them off the books is the reason why the dollar stays in the black community 6 hours.
Yeah.
4 to 6 hours.
Yeah.
Because no one is teaching us financial literacy. Mm-hmm. You know, you don't learn that in school. Mm-hmm. It's very minimum when you have a class they tell you a little about writing a check, but no one's telling you about, hey, if you keep your credit score this high.
Yeah. We're not
your interest rate could be here.
Yeah.
Or if you got or tell us, hey, it's actually cool to save money. We're pretty much one of the only communities that brag about how much we spend on something.
Right, of course. Yeah.
Hey, these J's cost me $500 or $2,000. But we're not. But rarely are we talking about, hey, I saved this much money.
Right. Yeah.
It's a version of making couponing to a certain extent cool. Right. Hey, I don't have to spend my money on whatever it is. It's cool to save money, because long term you're gonna need those finances to live. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't always have to be money, because I remember one person told me credit is better than money. You can be broke with a 800 credit score, and the bank will lend you money.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
You can be a millionaire with a 500 credit score. They won't give you a nickel, even though you have collateral.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we got to start thinking about those different ways of incubation. Even like you talk about going to school. You know, me and you talked about it. And I was watching something talking about the mindset shift of, before a kid go to college, how about helping them get a trade? Right. That way, if it's a girl, she want to learn how to do hair, or she want to get her nursing assistants or certain things, or a boy want to learn how to cut hair himself. That way, before you go to college and take out one of these loans, because college lending is predatory. I speak firsthand. Before you fall into that predatory lending, you can now also, instead of falling into debt, and you got people hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, you can actually pay for classes yourself.
There you go.
Because college is not a marathon. I mean, not a sprint. It's a marathon when it comes to college. So you can pay for classes as you go, mm-hmm. to alleviate yourself from having that financial debt that we've seen so many people have. You know, mm-hmm. I remember working in the call center and consolidation department one year. I saw a guy that had, between his two daughters, $700,000 worth of debt.
Jesus Christ.
And when you do the interest rate calculator, it's like, for me, he's not going to pay that back.
Lord have mercy on his soul.
But those type of things will keep us financially stable. You know, and then understanding, you know, part of that incubation process, you get with a guy who runs a business and teach you how to balance the books. Yeah. How to understand, how to truly serve customers. That's the reason why Chick-fil-A is so great with customer service. Mm-hmm. Understanding how to deal with the community, these different things that we need to be taught. Mm-hmm. It's not always about the books, which is great. Yeah. But we need to understand these different skills. So once you become 18, whether you stay in the house and you need to incubate and you need to cook a little longer, at least we have some form of ground to start it. We can't have the boys or girls, whatever. If, for example, if a woman say, "Well, I want a certain type of guy," when you're talking about the dating process, if no one took the time out to teach them how to be a man, mm-hmm. how to interact with women, or even how to look another man in the eye and being a man of your word. Right. How is he gonna be the woman, the man that she really needs at that time? Because no one taught him.
Right. Yep.
So now we have these different relationships that are failing. These are passing ships by the night that are failing because no one taught anyone how to communicate, how to be a better person, or even how to deal with life. We just say, "Hey, you're 18. What? Hey, sink, like you said, sink or swim."
There you go.
And sometimes they don't even give you the rafter. They don't even give you floaties. Just get out there and do it.
Yep. Indeed. Yep. But
I will tell y'all this. So my man, my son was going to school. My oldest son was going to high school here at Killeen High School, and his mom was living in Florida. So she kept putting stuff in his ear. You need to come to Florida. You need to come to Florida, visit your mom. Blah 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 blah. So he comes to me and he's like, "Hey, I need to talk to you about going to Florida." You know, so all right, let's go out to dinner and talk about it like men. So I took him. We went to Olive Garden. So hey, what's going on? What's happening? Let's talk over a meal. So we talking. He's like, "Oh, I want to go to Florida," and I'm like, "Okay, but you want to go to college, right?" I'm like, yeah. I'm like, so why would you want to leave in the middle of your senior year to go to another high school? Like that for me, it doesn't make sense. You stay here. Let's get you hooked up for college. Once you get in, you know what I mean? Then you can do what you need to do. You know what I'm saying? Before you go off to college, I'll send you down to Florida, visit your mom. You know what I'm saying? And then from there, you can take off and go up to New York where you want to go to school at.
Yep.
Nah, Dad, blah, blah. So things happened. She convinced him to break out, and he broke out and went down to Florida and graduated high school. So I went, saw him graduate, came back. But before I left, he was like, "Hey, Dad, I'm thinking about, I want to come back to Texas and stuff because, I want to go to school. I want to go to college." So I said, okay. But it's got to be on these terms right here. No ifs, ands, or buts. If you come back to Texas, you got to work. You got to do one of these things.
Mm-hmm.
You either got to be working full time, stacking your chips while you're applying for college, or you got to be working part time and going to school. All right. Either way, either one of those.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And as long as you're doing either one of those, we're gonna help you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right, Dad. All right, So he came, and he was working.
Mm-hmm.
Right, he was working over at the call center. I keep wanting to say GNC, but it ain't GNC. Is what's the name of that place?
No.
GC Service. No.
He was
Teleperformance.
Teleperformance, yeah.
Okay. Teleperformance. So he's working for Teleperformance, right? So all these Amazon boxes coming. I'm like, yo, what you doing with your money, man? Well, it's just some things I wanted to buy, Dad, that I never had a chance to buy. Okay, all right, you saving your money, right? Because I'm not going to check on you. I'm not going to be like, let me see your bank account because I'm taking care of the other stuff. You're supposed to be doing your part. All right, Dad, I got you. Then it's like 1 day off, 2 day off, 3 day off, 4th day. I'm like, yo, why you still here? What's up? Oh, no, I mean, they didn't need me. Okay, all right. And then we riding in the car, and I'm like, yo, you don't have a lot of days off, man, and you ain't asked me to take you to work in like a week.
Right.
Oh, Dad, I resigned, Dad.
Mm-hmm.
You did what? You resigned. Yo, you just negated our deal, man. We had a deal. Why you didn't come to me and talk to me?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, Dad, it's it's hard. Working is hard. What?
Yeah.
You're right. It is.
Yeah.
But you just negated our deal. Now, man, we done paid for you to stay at the dorm. We done paid your registration fee. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, and then now you're not doing your part.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't have a car, Dad. I don't have a car. So then we went out. We got him a car.
Mm-hmm.
It was a minivan. The first car we found was a minivan, $1,000. Here, boom, it's yours, free and clear. Go put the name in your title. Everything is yours. We got the insurance. Only thing you got to do is put gas in. That's it. That's going to be your ride. You know what I'm saying? You want me to take this all the way to New York? I'm like, hey, listen, there's some kids out there that don't even have this.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I'm trying to send you up there with this. I don't know, Dad. It's like, it's going to be really, really hard, and I want to go see Mom before I leave. So listen, you wanting to go see your mom has nothing to do with me. My job right now is to get you into college, and that's what I'm trying to do because that's what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
You going to see your mom. I understand. She's your mother. I get it. I'm not downplaying that. But, yo, that may have to be on the back burner, son, because right now she's going to have to understand that you're trying to get your life together. You know what I mean? Like, this is the start of your life. Listen, and my speech to him was this right here in a nutshell. Your mom and me are going to have to understand that right now it's all about you and what you want to do with your life. We're living ours. You need to start yours, you know? Mom, no, Dad, you know, like I really want to go see her and how I'm supposed to make it in this car. So me and him got into a tiff, you know? So I tried to let it, you know, die down for a couple of days, came back, he's still riffing. You know what? When she negated the deal, here we go. So I sold the minivan, took the $1,000, right? Kept the cash, went, bought him a plane ticket to Florida, one way, right? Sat him down at the table, and I said, since you can't follow the rules in the house, you negated the deal, now you want to do all this other stuff, is $1,000 from the van. It's yours. It's actually mine, but I'm going to give it to you. Here's your plane ticket to go to Florida to see your mother. Okay? Now, well, what airline is this? This is Spirit Air. Okay? Well, I don't know about all of that. I said, I'll tell you what. If you're not on that plane when it flies out, that $1,000 you got, that's going to buy your next plane ticket. So you have a choice right now, and I'm trying to be cool about it. This is the final offer right here. This is it. This is where we at. This is what we're doing because you and your mother making this choice. You know what I mean? So then he gets to Florida, right? I take him to the airport in Dallas, drop him off. He flies out okay. A couple of weeks later, I get a phone call, Dad, I need you to sign for my FAFSA. Oh, you got the wrong dad. You sure you calling the right dad? Because the last I knew, you didn't want to do the deal that I wanted to do for you. So why, you know, and my whole thing is that whole, what I'm getting at is, had his parents prepped him in middle school, we wouldn't have been going through that at that stage. Right. Yep. After graduation, now we dealing with this.
Yeah, boom.
Because like you say, Skeens, if we'd have caught him in middle school, we'd have been prepping him. Okay, right now you in 7th grade. What do you want to be in life? What's your main interest? Okay, cool. Whatever it is, we got you. So when you get to high school, we need to start gearing all your classes that you take towards that right there, and try to get you in this early college that they got here in Killeen.
That's
Start walking them up. But instead, now we dealing with this on the back end of high school, and it's like we behind the Powerball, man. We behind it.
And here's the thing. Here's the thing too that's key, Dave. And I want to go back to when you went into the military. Took this little detour, but we're gonna come back. But is that here's the beautiful thing too, because Skeens and I were just talking about, and we're always talking about relationships, and you were talking about a time in the relationship with you and your son, because you know our motto, our mantra, whatever, you know, our idea is that work in relationships never stops, right? And as a dad in that moment, that was a moment where you could either have bailed out in so many ways, but even when there was an adjustment to, like you said, the plan and the agreement, you still stepped outside of yourself in your ego, as you know, because our ego is getting in the way a lot. You know what I'm saying? Because our ego, we just want to go off, we want to snap. Sometimes we do, but you're like, you know what, son? If this is the move that you truly want to make, I'll adjust fire. And still, like you said, you didn't want the whip. Okay, you want to go down? Okay, I'm going to get you the plane ticket. And I'm going to give you the bread for me selling the whip so that you can have it. You know what I mean? So, I mean, that's how we have to make adjustments and continue even working, because relationships are never going to go exact, even as much Skeens as we're going to try to prepare. There's still stuff that's going to go left.
Relationships equals relentlessness.
There you go. Boom.
It's a relentless process.
Yeah, it's a relentless pursuit. Yeah, exactly. But But Dave, I wanted to go back though. When you first made that decision and you were going to the Army, and I'm gonna tie that in too, guys. That I had a connection to Dave well before I even knew who he was. But you make the decision, you go into the military. Where did you do basic training at?
I did basic training at Fort Leonard Wood.
Okay. Now, for us that don't know where Fort Leonard Wood is, where is that at?
That's Missouri.
That's Missouri.
Fort lost in the woods.
So what did you what was your experience like, and what would you say overall that you got that was added to you when going through basic training?
Man, so many things, Yeah. Wow. Like real talk. Like, man, a few I'll tell y'all a quick story. So when back then when you first go to basic training, they want to know everybody that did ROTC because they want to put you out front. You know what I'm saying? So
because you went to basic when you went to basic, this was the 50s or the 60s. No, what year did you go to basic?
I went in 86, October 86.
Okay, 86. All right.
Yeah. So, so we did a basic training, and they weeding through cats because everybody's trying to puff their chest out and be out front, and you don't know what they want. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a mind game, so you don't know what they want. So I'm playing the backdrop. So after they weeded through everybody, I finally got my spot to be the platoon guy. Basically run the show. The middleman, you really don't have no power, but the drill sergeant makes it seem like you got power. So I had been the platoon guy from like the fourth week all the way, all the way throughout the rest of the basic training. But halfway in between, I think it was halfway in between, this white dude from another platoon came down and talked to our drill sergeant about coming to our platoon because he didn't feel like he was getting a fair shake, right? So I used to get little bennies, like the drill sergeant used to call me in the office and have a Coke waiting for me and be like, yo, have a seat, drink the Coke, and then when I finished the Coke, he'd be like, yo, all right, go ahead and bounce,
Okay.
So one time, I after this dude switched over, I go in the office and he's already in there. And I'm like, yo, what? Like, yo, this is weird. Okay, cool. So I'm still the platoon guy. So at the end of basic training, one person gets promoted. So everybody is like, yo, Barnes, you got it, man, because you've been the platoon guy the longest, man. We appreciate it, blah, blah, blah. So when they do a little introduction, like, hey, we get to award one person with PV2 before they leave. And they called this dude up instead of me, And so I was like, man, what? Everybody looking at me in the auditorium like, yo, what up, man? What happened? What happened? What'd you do? I'm like, I didn't do nothing. I mean, like, yo. So we had a white drill sergeant and a black drill sergeant. So the black drill sergeant, when we got to the barracks, he was like, yo, I need to see you in my office. He's like, I bet. So I go down there, he's like, close the door. Boom. He's like, take a seat. So I take a seat and he's like, let me ask you a question. He's like, do you think that racism exists in the Army? Did you know that racism exists in the Army when you joined? And for me, I was like, wow, that's a crazy question, man. Like, I'm like, nah, I didn't think it existed. He was like, well, you just were a victim of it. And what can you do about it? I'm just like, I'm stupid. I'm like, I don't know what I can do about it. He's like, you can't do nothing about it. How you gonna prove it? And he was like, and then furthermore, you want to know how you didn't get it? Because you remember the first week of basic training, you got a counseling statement for the corner on your bed not being at the 45-degree angle.
Man.
So that was the only bad counseling you got in 8 weeks of basic training that prevented you from getting promoted, and they gave it to the white guy who came to your platoon in the middle of basic training.
Wow.
So I said, man. So I learned that in basic training. I also learned trust, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So who to trust? You can't trust everybody. Mm-hmm. So, and this is a crazy story. It's really funny too. So I'm in the latrine. I'm taking a dump. I hear 2 guys walk in. This is like a scene from a movie. Yeah. I promise you. So I'm in the latrine. I'm handling my business. I hear 2 guys walk in. They do the little, I could tell they do the little look to see if anybody was in there, but they didn't look hard enough because they would have saw my feet.
Mm-hmm.
So they started talking, man, I don't know what's up with Barnes, man. I told him not to do that, man, but he did it anyway. Now we all got to suffer, man. I don't know. We got to get rid of him, man. He can't be the platoon guy, man. Like, man, you know. So
my only question is, did you lift your feet up at that time, or did you?
No, I didn't. I didn't. So I finished up. I flushed the toilet. They got quiet. I came out, and I just looked at both of them. And I was like, what's up? He's like, oh man, I didn't know you was in here, man. See, I was like,
I know you did.
Don't play me like that. don't play me like that, man. You know? And the one dude was supposed to be like the assistant platoon guy, so like my assistant. And I'm like, yo, I voted for you, man. I put word and drill on ear to get you where you at right now, man. And you in here. I said, man, yo, can't trust that. I didn't know who to trust at that point. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, I didn't know who to trust. So I was like, man, I just got to watch my back, watch who I talk to, watch how I talk, you know, all of that.
Yeah. So, now, spin it forward a little bit, guys. I didn't know this until years later. You know, Dave is the godfather to one of my best friends who, oh, by the way, on the last episode and on some other episodes, I played his music, Dominic. But I knew Dave by meeting Dominic here in the 2000s. But little did I know until my wedding that my father walks up to Dave and is like, man. And I'm like, you know him? Like, yeah, man, I knew this dude. My dad, I knew this dude in Germany. I like, for real? He's like, yeah. So that was back in like 93 or 4 or something like that. I don't know what year that was, but my dad and Dave had crossed paths in the military all those years ago.
6 degrees of separation.
And, you know, this is at my wedding in 2012 that these two are seeing each other. So it was just crazy, man. So I know your MOS was you was an 88 Mike, correct?
Right, yeah, truck driver.
Which is a truck driver. So I mean, we'll probably go in. There's a few things I want to go into depth later on, but just what would you say? Because you did how many years in the Army, Dave?
21 years and 7 months.
It's funny. Army dudes always remember their stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like they did time. But man, I did.
When you think about it, too.
So, what would you say to put a button on it just and make it short and sweet? What would you say overall was the benefit of you going into the Army? Your overall experience.
It grew me up.
Mm-hmm.
It grew me up.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that because it's like I always remember my first duty station because I got there. I'm 18. I'm getting a check, and I'm like, "Yo, this is all mine. This is all mine. What do I do with this?" And when I say it teaches you to grow up, because, you know, as you know, like with anything, once you start getting money, you start getting bills, and then you got, you know, when you're young, you like, oh, I ain't got to pay that. I ain't got to pay that. And then, you know, years down the road, it's like, hey, this is on your credit report. Like, what is that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, you had a credit card or a bank card and it had this much on there and you didn't pay it. And like, man, what?
Mm-hmm.
That was back when?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
So I would just say it teaches you to grow up, and then you, like, I always refer back to my first duty station because that's where, like, I didn't know anybody. I'm this young guy. I'm trying to fit in, but at the same time trying to be me.
Mm-hmm.
And
you're finding that balance, man. It's always the balance you're trying to find.
Trying to just growing up, just finding, what I'm saying, as you go along, you see what, like what doesn't work, what works, how to talk to people, how to, receive people. That the whole is so much, but it just matures you big time because you don't, man, you can call whoever you want to call. That's what hold on for a second, fellas. That's what I said.
Dave is dealing with it. Matter of fact, I'm getting ready to touch on the dynamic and demographics of his children. That's gonna walk us right into that, man. But
Patience.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. But yeah, I'm sitting here just reminiscing on I'm gonna have to see how it turns out once this episode come up. But it's funny, me and Dave over the phone. There's a number of people that always mistake us for one another over the phone. Residents will call the office.
Okay.
And then we got one.
Not only I hate to interrupt, but I gotta. Can we do a continuation episode?
Yeah, for sure, man.
Family issue I need to take care of.
All right, man. We'll talk to you soon, man. I appreciate you jumping on.
Okay. Yep.
All right.
Yep.
So anyway, y'all.
Man of many talents.
Yeah, we'll have Dave come back, man. But they always residents would confuse us over the phone, and then one of our higher ups, he'll hear us talking in the morning meeting, and he's like, "I'm talking." He's like, "Dave," and I'm like, "Sir, no."
Speaking of children in the background, that's one thing I can say about Dave. He loves kids.
Oh, he loves kids, man. And I was when we worked in the same office the first time. Kids would come. The proximity of our office to the school is like the kids would have to pass it on their way. Most of them on their way home walking. From the elementary school, right there.
You like
right,
like Leo.
Yes, exactly. Like my cousin Leo, our cousin Leo. But Dave, the kids would come in and they come get water or like a piece of candy. And Dave, in the way he was thinking before, he set it up where. He would go out there and he had printed off, he had a book up there, he had flashcards, and then he had other printed off questions that he would ask them in order to get the piece of candy or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So by doing that, me and him established, and I'm gonna get in where I fit in. So then, speaking of kids, you can hear one of mine, but we started building relationships with those kids. So it got to a point where they would come looking for us.
Yeah.
And, I love kids too, but I never had that mind frame to do something like that, to interact with them a little bit more. And it was I remember there was a young man named Arjun, and there was another little boy. I can't remember that man. I think his name was Alex. But in an unfortunate situation, his father had came up missing. He was like a missing soldier on Fort Hood, and they ended up finding him somewhere. He had passed away some kind of way. Wow. And I can remember he was in the office one day, and one of the other ladies that worked there, just to show you, just caring for people. He was missing his dad, and he was in the office that day with his mom crying. And one of the ladies, she's behind the front desk, still taking calls and talking to residents, but she had him in her lap, just holding him. Oh, wow. And he was just sitting there crying. But it was all based off of us establishing that relationship based off stuff that Dave had done. Yep. I just piggybacked off of what he did, and we were building, again, relationships, man.
Bro, even like when our basketball team, we would do volunteer work at his church
Yeah.
Shout out to the Clean Orange Tornadoes.
Yeah, we was gonna get there. Skeens and Dave, they coach kids basketball team together. But
the thing what Dave would do, part of playing, we would have to do volunteer work.
Yeah.
So we would have like the backpack drives at the beginning of every school year.
Yep.
And it was amazing that he knew every kid's name.
Yeah.
And he had a personalized conversation for every kid that came through.
Yeah.
I was like, yo, I know a lot of people, but he knew everything. Yeah, hey, you this, and you doing this right. Like, he had a conversation for every one of them. You can feel the love at all times. That was great.
Yeah, he's great. He loves volunteering. That joker can come up with event ideas. I used to mess with him about his interior decorating because Todd would get mad when we worked in Comanche 3 because he would rearrange the great room without nobody. So we would come in and everything in the great room there is huge. Mm-hmm. And he would and it's got several sets of couches and chairs. Dave be moved all the chairs and tables, and Todd would come in the morning, man, what the heck's going on here, man? I was like, Dave, that interior decorating, man. But anyway, shout out to my man. That's just another big brother of mine. Like I said, we talk multiple times a week, just throwing stuff around, whether it's work related, whether it's kid related, whether it's marriage related, it's spiritual related. It's just all that stuff. We had that free access like that. So anyway, man, we'll do a part 2 with Dave, man. We'll still make sure we put this up so you guys can check it out, man. But anyway, it's been another episode of How Did We Get Here? And I'm your host, Jay Carter, and the man that has always heard and never, ever seen Skeens. And we'll holla next time.